All right, Mentor Minutes is now live. This is just a chance for all of my viewers out there to ask questions. Any real world situations, struggles that you're dealing with in leadership, go ahead, drop down into the comment section. And this is a great chance for you to ask that, and we can go ahead and kind of talk it through, and I can give you my thoughts on those. I believe that management theory is best learned when put into practice. So if we have some great situations to deal with, we'll learn how to apply some of the main principles in leadership and make your leadership life easier. Now, the first question I have, I like to see these with some questions I didn't get a chance to get to while I've got some people jumping on. Abdulhamid, good to see you from Dubai. Very nice. Appreciate you tuning in this late your time. But my first question actually comes up on YouTube. I post these up on YouTube when I'm done with these Facebook Live sessions. And it comes in, it's how to make your employees work instead of talk. This is a great leadership struggle that's out there, is how do you motivate employees to get their work done instead of socializing? And so when we talk about very simple motivating factors, one of the main motivating factors that people will have is, Betty, good to see you here. It's been a long time. One of the main motivating factors that people have is peer pressure. And that can come from you, and that can come from their peers. Obviously, with peer pressure. So what you want to do is, in this case, he has a backlog of stuff that he needs to get done. And he needs to get people to go through that backlog. So get clear on the reason why you need to get through that backlog and what impact it has on the organization. First, handle the why. That's one of the key motivating steps that a lot of leaders miss in their leadership in trying to motivate their employees, is why is something important that they need to do? Everybody wants to work on important things. Good to see everybody jumping on here. Janine, very early in the morning in Australia, I see. So what I would recommend in this case, when you have a specific project, a specific backlog, what I'd look to do is I'd look to make it public. So I would look to hand out the backlog, have one of your supervisors or yourself manage the handing out of that backlog. And what you do is you publicly track who's handled the most, whatever it is, invoices, orders from that particular backlog. Chart it up on a piece of paper, on a whiteboard, somewhere public where everybody can see that Cameron has handled the most, or the least. I'll put myself at the bottom. But Mohammed has handled the most, and Sandy's handled the second most. Good to see everybody jumping on here. And so you track those things publicly, and that peer pressure motivates people to go a little bit further in things. The other thing that you want to do is to make time to make the rounds and ask for updates. Now, you can do this if you're handing out the sheets, in the case of this, where it's a backlog. You can hand these things out and you can kind of update people and get updates on it. So you're motivating them that way as well. They know that the boss, their manager, is going to come around and ask them how they're doing with this. And everybody likes to give better news as opposed to poor news in regards to a certain situation. So as far as motivating to get people to work instead of talk, make sure you're explaining why what they're doing is important. Ask for updates if it's something important, a specific project. Make the rounds and ask for updates, but track progress publicly. And so that's one of those things where you can work peer pressure in your favor. Now I'm going to go back. Anybody that's jumped on here, if you have some questions, go ahead, drop them down into the comment section. I will take them in order. But I did want to get to another question I didn't get to on the yesterday's Facebook Live session Q&A, and it's, what happens when you're trying to turn around a culture and accountability, and kind of a tag-along question to a subject we talked about yesterday in regards to accountability, and your other managers aren't buying into it? So if you have like a supervisory staff underneath you that isn't buying into the change, one of the most important things, again, we talk about the why, but we talked about that yesterday, is why it's important, okay? So you reinforce that. But when you have a lot of momentum in a particular direction, and hey, poor culture, poor accountability, that is a direction. It's the wrong direction, and you're trying to turn that around. But when you have a lot of momentum, it takes a while to turn things around. And that's what I'd really like to reiterate to everybody in regards to many of the things that you want to put in place, many of the positive changes that you want to put in place. It takes 2, 3, 5, 7 times of reinforcing that before people realize that it isn't just the change of the week that is going to go away. And in a lot of cases where you have bad culture or bad accountability, there have been attempts to turn that around in the past, and it hasn't been successful, and it's just gone away. And so people continue to not work particularly hard because they figure, whatever, Cameron's just, on his high horse trying to get everybody to do this particular thing, and it'll go away and he'll move on to something else later on. They realize that it is important to you and that it's not going away, and then you'll see that buy-in. I know it seems simple, but it's an important factor in so many things. Too many times leaders give up. And that's why the change of the week happens so often in organizations, is leaders give up too early. Keep pushing for those particular changes. That's the one bit of advice that I'd tackle there. Now, I'm going to scroll up because I think I missed one of the questions that kind of came in here. I appreciate everybody jumping on. And if you have some questions, any struggles, I know everybody that's has jumped on outside of the States is heading into Monday and a new week. Are there any things that you're not looking forward to? Any challenges that you're going to be facing that you'd love to get to, some thoughts on? Drop them down in the comments. I'll answer them. And I always encourage everybody else to give their 2 cents in regards to these topics as well. It's something that really helps round out the discussion. I don't pretend to have all of the answers here, and all of us are smarter than one of us is. So, not too early. Good. I'm glad to see that. All right. Sandy has our first question today, and it's, what can you share about work climate as a leader when companies are reducing staff? And unfortunately, this is something that's been popping up in the last few live Q&As, is reductions in force. The main thing in regards to work climate, when you're going through those tough times, any tough times, whether it's a reduction in staff or whether it's just that the company isn't performing particularly well or is going through a particular crisis, it is even more important to be transparent and to communicate with the team. We live in the information age. Everybody is used to being able to get the answer to any question they can think of through Google at their fingertips. And so you need to make sure that you are giving as much information as possible. And yes, some of your information in regards to this is going to be maybe a little bit premature, maybe not fully formed. And so you've only got 90% of the story. I would encourage you, Sandy, to go forward with that 90%. Hey, I don't have the whole story yet, but this is the situation that we're looking at right now. No, we haven't made any determinations in regards to that, but we look to have those determinations within the next week or two. And so you give them as much information as possible. And the concern is that you're going to create a whole environment of fear, and people are going to have a whole bunch of issues, and it's going to create a panic. And it might in the very instant case, but then they get past that fear, they get past that concern, and they can carry forward with their work. So my big encouragement in managing a work climate when you're going through change, and it's huge changes are like this as well, even positive changes are like this. You want to be communicating as much as possible. Meet with them one-on-one, have weekly team meetings. If you have stand-ups, you as the manager, go out to those stand-ups every hour as you have people coming in and talk them through the updates on what's going on in regards to the reduction in force. But really be as transparent as humanly possible. Kim Marie, always good to see you on one of these. Again, any questions that anybody has out there, any situations or struggles that you're dealing with, drop them down into the comment section. I'm going to deal with another question that I got from one of my private coaching clients. We dealt through workaholism. And how do you battle workaholism? I would argue that probably 2/3 or so of the people that are tuning into this live broadcast struggle with that. And the thing is when you're at type A personality, when you want to achieve more, when you want to be better, you may naturally have a tendency to be a bit of a workaholic. And it comes out of a couple of different things. But one of the ways that it kind of spirals out of control as far as workaholism is concerned is with perfectionism. Everything can always be better. Again, I will say that. Everything can always be better. And you can get in a trap of working things constantly in your off hours while you're driving on the way home. After, during dinner, you're thinking about these sorts of things. And so what I really encourage you to do to kind of manage that workaholism just a little bit. Hey, it serves you as far as your career in certain aspects, but you do need to unplug. And that is simply finding ways to unplug from the phone. It can be that at dinner time, for half an hour while you're at dinner, that phone is in another room. So you can't hear it buzzing when you get the latest notification. If you're going to the gym, don't carry your phone with you. I'm guilty of that as well. I bring my phone with me to the gym and I'm checking emails if I get them. All right. But find those times. Movies are another good one. All right. Don't even put it in your pocket. Leave it, turn it off in the movies or leave it in the car. Find ways to unplug. And what you'll find is that you develop a habit where you aren't constantly working. Our always on, always connected culture, it makes it very easy to work yourself in that direction of workaholism. So you want to develop habits where you're not engaged with work. The place is not going to burn down, hopefully, if you don't answer an email in the first 30 minutes that it shows up or in the first hour. And I use this example all the time. When you go out for lunch or to meet a client at lunch, do people bother you? Are you in the middle of a meeting and people are knocking on the door? No, they know you're in a meeting. There's a ton of things that can wait. And as the more that you practice making the unimportant wait, the easier it is to manage that workaholism, build yourself a little bit of life as well as work, and kind of start defeating that a little bit. So looking for questions as they pop in here. So any questions you have, drop them down. I'll answer them almost in real time, but I do have a couple that I didn't get a chance to get to before. The one was dealing with a peer that does not like you. And I'll actually extend this out. Dealing with an employee that doesn't like you. Dealing with a peer, dealing with a boss, any of those people, any of those individuals in the work environment that don't like you, this is how you deal with them. First, you get perspective. And that is, as a boss, not everybody is going to like you. There is probably 5 to 10% at least of your employee population that doesn't like you. And you may not know who all of them are, but it is a reality, and that's fine. Okay, I want you to be sure that it's fine. You aren't going to be beloved by everybody. All right, and that goes for your peers, and it goes for your boss. The big mistake that people make when they are faced with somebody that doesn't like them or somebody that you don't like, and we all have those employees that we don't particularly get along with for whatever reason that is. The big mistake that everybody makes is they pull away from that person. They stop communicating with that person. And what that does in a vacuum of information, in a negative environment, that vacuum gets filled with more negativity. That person that didn't like you before now puts a negative spin on everything that you do and they see you do. You can have the same thing in regards to an employee that you don't particularly like. If you're not communicating with them regularly, that relationship continues to sour as you build up more negativity that isn't counteracted with positivity, and you don't have the full story on things. So when you're faced with an employee who doesn't like you, a peer who doesn't like you, what I really encourage is for you to take the extra effort to just have little moments where you can pop in and you can say hi to them. Hey, how was your weekend? Hey, I know we sent out this. Can I get an update on this? How's it going? And you can, I want to say manipulate. I hate using that word, but well, it's very descriptive. But you can manipulate the conversation. So you're asking them about something that you know has been successful. But if you face a situation where you don't like somebody, they don't like you, don't make the mistake of separating from them and not communicating with them. It's actually more important that you take the time and the effort to continue communicating with them, and that you can heal that relationship or just make sure that it doesn't get worse. So that's a big one, and I hope that helps everybody that's out there. Terry has the next question for us, and it's, how should you handle if you work with other leaders that are very negative about the organization? Very tough, Terry, and for everybody else out there who may not face this particular situation, this happens a lot with the rumor mill. So you go to the break room and everybody's talking through some stuff. So it affects a lot of people that are out there. Part of it is, and I'll go back on what I just said, is finding some separation from those individuals. Okay, it's important that you don't necessarily get associated with other leaders who are negative, because everybody catches that vibe from them. Okay, either the boss overhears a conversation or somebody else overhears a conversation, and you don't want to be associated with that. Now, what I often recommend in these cases where you still obviously need to interact with them and you catch this negativity is you go to them and you simply say, well, what do you think we should do about it? Move from the issue that they're negative about to what they think should be done about it. And then depending on where that goes, you can ask them, well, why can't we do something like that? Okay, well, because the boss that they're complaining about is never going to let it go forward because there's no budget. Well, is there a way we could find the budget? Is there a way to do it cheaper? Is there a way to get 80% of the benefit for 20% of the cost? So you try to focus them on action. I used to tell people that to be a bit of what I would call an apologist, and that is find the positive in that negative. Just when we talk about all of these negative things, and we've had a few different questions on that so far today, that negativity, there's almost always a positive in with that negative. There's that silver lining to that gray cloud in most situations. And so, yeah, you can call that out, that positivity, but what I find is actually acknowledging where they're coming from the negativity, asking them what they think the organization should do, or what they should do, or what the other team should do. And then asking them why that can't take place. And so you start working through solutions, and that can turn things around. But again, you don't want to completely be associated with those individuals, so it's good to limit a little bit that time that you spend with them, but also look to be solution-oriented, not problem-oriented, Terry. I know that was kind of a long-winded response, but I hope it was helpful. Ricky has a question, am I wrong to leave my manager's role due to feeling or not having the back of the business? Feeling not having the back of it. Oh, so you don't feel like, well, how I'm taking this, Ricky, is you don't feel that the organization really has your back. And no, you're not necessarily wrong for leaving in those cases. There's two reasons that I recommend leaving an organization, really only two. And that is you're not learning anything and you don't have any possibility of moving up in the organization. Those are really the two factors that we look at. All right. So the learning that could come from this, Ricky, is that you learn how to manage without the support of upper management or without support of the organization. You've basically been dealt a bad hand. Hey, I'm in Vegas, I'll use those sorts of terms, but you've been dealt a bad hand and you have to deal with it and make the most of it. And that challenge can really develop you as a leader, okay? But with that being said, if that prohibits you from making positive changes, then that's not something that's serving your career. You're basically stagnating in your role. And if you're stagnating in your role, you're not learning and you're missing out on the opportunity to move up in that organization, in which case it's not the worst thing in the world to move on. But again, before moving on from a particular organization, ask yourself whether there's things that you can learn, develop that experience, because that allows you to move on in the longer term, and whether you have the opportunity to move up in the organization. There's a lot of people that I've worked with who work in dysfunctional organizations, but they've been able to overcome those challenges and continue to move up the ranks. So it's been good for their career, not necessarily good for their sanity. And that's always a balancing as well, as making sure that you're able to stay sane. Yes, Lene, the struggle is real. I say to people, hey, there are some silver bullets out there and there are some tricks that will immediately turn things around. But most of the things in leadership take time, they take effort. Marilyn, good to see you here. Tom, always good to see you online. So I am caught up on questions. So if you have any questions for me, any concerns, struggles that you're going to be dealing with this week, drop them down into the comment section. And I do have one last issue to deal with, and that is how to overcome the fear of failure. I really appreciate this question. Somebody sent it to me to stay anonymous just directly through Facebook on this. How to overcome your fear of failure. There's a couple of different things that you want to do to kind of overcome that. And all of us are fearful of failure. I want to say, if you have a fear of failure, join the club. All of us are. It's not comfortable to fail in anything. And everybody talks about how important failure is and learning from it. But hey, we'd all rather just succeed right out of the gate than having to learn those hard lessons. And that will happen occasionally. But what I recommend in regards to failure is get clear on what your top 3 concerns are. What are the 3 big failures that you are worried about that are holding you back from taking as much action as you want. So what are those 3 failures? Get clear on it, all right? Those things that we don't understand fully are the things that we're going to be most concerned about. And so one of the ways to get less concerned about failure is to get crystal clear on what this is. I know Tim Ferriss, I'm a big fan of his, talks through it, talks through what's the worst case scenario. And when you get clear on what the worst case scenario is, it's clear to take actions that prevent it, and it doesn't become this big boogeyman that's in the closet, waiting to jump out and scare you. So get clear on what your top 3 are. What are your 3 big failures? Then I want you to come up with a plan of action. A, to prevent those things, but B, if they occur, what are your next steps? And really the B is almost more important in this case. So if you fail in these 3 particular areas, what are you going to do? What are the conversations you're going to have with your boss, your employees? What are your next courses of actions? And that's the next step. So you get clear on your 3 failures, get clear on a plan if they come to fruition, and then start taking action. That's the 3rd step. When you start acting and when you start moving forward, you gain information on what's going on and what's going to work. That's a huge key. But then you're acting. You're not wallowing in fear. You're not wallowing in the unknown, in the what ifs. You're taking action and you're moving forward with that. And that's one of the big keys that I don't see nearly enough. The thing is if you don't face up to your fears, if you're not actively challenging them, and again, preventing things from, your greatest fears from happening are important. But the more you don't take action, the bigger those things get. The more time that goes on where you don't take care of something, the bigger the deal is. How many times, and everybody out there knows this, how many times have you looked at your to-do list and it's overwhelming? You can't believe that you've got 30 different things to do on there. And then all of a sudden you get that little rush of motivation. And in 30 minutes, you've tackled 7 or 8 of those. All of a sudden, a quarter of the list is gone in 30 minutes. It seemed like a big deal because you weren't taking action on it. And the longer those items sit on the list, the bigger of a deal those things become. And so my big thing, if you're tackling your fears, get clear on what those are, come up with a plan for dealing with them, and then start taking some sort of action on it. And those fears will diminish and become less likely to take place. So I'm going to do a last call out there for any questions. Anybody got any questions at all? Leadership management struggles, any generic things? I'll do last call for that. Otherwise, I'm going to sign off for today. I'm looking to do these every single day, so keep an eye out for them, posting them up on YouTube, and then I'll be creating a podcast out of these later on this week. So look for news on that. You'll all see it here on Facebook as well. So in the meantime, you guys have a great day. I will talk to you all tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.